hour, and an hour is like it's basically just the introduction.
Yeah, yeah. Just let me know when you're ready to stop, and I'll we'll stop. I mean, it's that
Yeah,
simple.
no, no,
Okay,
go
what's
for it.
up? Yeah, thanks for joining everybody. We got a few people watching already, and but tonight we're joined by Ray Hernandez, director of Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, or CCRI. We've already talked for about 10 minutes, and it was amazing. But the mission is to explore the relationship between consciousness and research and phenomenology. I've never heard that word before. It's a beast one. Of the paranormal experiences, aka contact modalities, which include near-death experiences, alien abductions, ghosts, remote viewing, and other paranormal experiences, including Bigfoot. I just learned. You sent me a ton of material. We've only got an hour, so let's get to it. What we were talking about, Ray. Academically, you study the paranormal and the other dimensions. Long story short.
Yeah, I'm part of a group of retired PhD academics and
Mm.
medical doctors. Altogether, we have close to 25 PhD academics, five medical doctors, and what we're studying is the nature of our reality. What is consciousness, and how that entails people having contact with non-human intelligence via all of the paranormal that we call the contact modalities. We believe that all of these experiences, including the phenomenon known as UFOs, that all of these experiences are all consciousness-based phenomena, and we can discuss the particulars as we move along.
Okay, yeah, we were talking about how we see the physical realm in our five senses. Obviously, that's how it works. But when you move to the other side, we clip in and out. Do you, is that ability base in another dimension? Or is it like a shared technology they use? Like, where does that ability originate from? That clipping in and out of dimensions
No, this
in
is
your
not tech. First of all, there's no such things as alien abductions. That's pure bullshit. We were able to determine that in a 5 year comprehensive statistical academic research study of UFO contact experiencers. We had Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon,
Mhm.
Dr. Rudy Shields, emeritus professor of astrophysics from Harvard University, John Climo, who taught psychology to PhD students for 45 years, Dr. Bob Davis, who was a retired professor of neuroscience, and many, many other people. So we studied over 4,300 people that had both seen a UFO and
Mhm.
have had contact with a non-human intelligence. And we asked over 600 quantitative questions and 70 open-ended questions. And we published all of our findings in a book titled Beyond UFOs.
Mhm.
And that book, I'm making it available for free for anyone that wants to read it. So this is hardcore science. My email for you to request a free copies of everything that I'm talking about today is info, at a greater reality.com. And so to start off again, there's no such thing as alien abductions. There's no such thing as a physical ET alien coming from a physical planet. It's much, much more complex than that. But we believe that the UFO phenomenon, together with near-death experiences, out-of-body experience, hallucinogenic journeys, you take DMT or magic mushrooms, whatever,
Mhm.
that people see ghosts and spirits, a remote viewing, channeling, the psi phenomenon, that all of these phenomenon need to be studied as one integrated phenomenon. And there's many reasons for that, but the primary reason is that all of them involve a manipulation of space-time. And when, by definition, if something involves a manipulation of space-time, then they are multidimensional or interdimensional, depending on the term you prefer, and experiences. And so that's why it needs to be studied as one phenomenon.
Okay, so the aliens just aren't coming from another planet. They're coming from the dimensions.
Well, let
That's
me give you an
yeah.
example of that, okay? In
Hmm.
our
Go ahead.
research study, I said this was 5 years in the making. And we had not only the PhD academics, but we had people like Kathleen Martin, who wrote the book on Benny and Barney Hill.
Mhm.
She's written like 5 books on the UFO phenomenon. Barbara Lamb, Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who was the first PhD academic to write about contact experiencers. And we had about 4 or 5 other major researchers, some you know and some you might not know. And so we spent together as a group, the PhDs and the researchers in the field, say, how do you study this phenomenon? And so we asked a ton of questions, very lengthy surveys. And one of the things that we discovered, again, this is to a specific question, was that these individuals were seeing tens of thousands of different types of beings. For example, just the human-looking beings. There were thousands of them. Some were blue eyes, some were black physical appearance, some were Asian-looking, some were 2 feet tall, some were 50 feet tall, some had suits, some had uniforms. You name it. Numerous different types just of human-looking beings. And then you had energy beings. My goodness, there were thousands of different forms of energy beings. The small grays. I mean, some small grays were a little tiny. Some grays were very tall. Some had uniforms. Some didn't have any uniforms. Some had a star. Some had an insignia. Some were white colored. Some were brown colored. Some were green colored. It was, you name it. And then there was, for example, there's a man here. His name is Albert Rosales. He wrote 17 books, 17 different books on humanoid experiences. So these were humans. They were just humanoid. And some were robots. Some were like the Mothman, these huge, gigantic winged beings. And so the point that I'm getting is, are these tens of thousands of different types of beings, perceived physical beings, coming from tens of thousands of different physical planets, usually almost all the time for less than 30 seconds? People are not hanging out for 2 hours with these beings. It's like, boom,
No.
you see it 3 seconds and boom, that's it, And so are they coming from some other physical planet to hang out with us for 15 seconds and then they split, tens of thousands? Or is it, as Jacques Vallée said, and also Alan Hynek said, these are the two pioneers of modern ufology. It says, they say, is this something a little bit more complicated than just a physical being coming from a physical planet? Our perspective that it's a good way to understand it is like your Aunt Sally, right? You buried her 2 days ago. You saw her put in her grave, right? 2 days later, in your living room, you see Aunt Sally in a very, very physical form in your living room with her favorite Sunday dress. She stares and she looks at you. She doesn't say anything. She just looks at you, and then she disappears. Okay? So question for you, Bobby, is Aunt Sally physical or is she not physical? Is she real or is she not real? Okay? The answer to that is both. Okay? Just like Schrodinger's cat. The cat is alive and dead. Okay? It's the nature of our reality. And so whatever people are perceiving with the UFO intelligence that they're interacting with, okay, you could think of it similar to like your Aunt Sally. Also, the actual UFOs that people are seeing, there's literally thousands of different types of UFOs that people are seeing. In terms of the physical objects, again, thousands of different forms of physical objects. In terms of light shows, different types of light configurations, again, thousands of different light configurations. And also, these UFOs that we're seeing, these are holographic projections. And many people in this field are starting to understand that. For example, in my case, the very first UFO I called down, it was comprised of very large. The bottom of this object was like 30 feet on top of me. That was seen by my daughter and 3 adult witnesses. And it was comprised of hundreds of oblong streaks of light that formed the whole shell of this object. And inside was all this white plasma. Okay. So then my friends come and they run to us. Ray, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? I said, you know damn well what it is. And they said, no, it can't be. So they try to explain it away, like circus lights and things of that sort. And so after a minute of their explanations, I just busted out laughing. And in my mind, and this is an object that I call down, okay? It's commonly called CE5, but I prefer the term HICE, Human Initiated Contact Experiences. And so in my mind, I thought to them, I communicated to this intelligence, I said, you better come up with some better bullshit than this because my friends don't believe you. Immediately, what we were watching totally disappeared, was erased and replaced by something totally different. Now what we were all watching were these huge orbs that were still low to the ground. It wasn't like a star or anything like that. It was very low to the ground, like within between 30 feet to like 100 feet, that
Hmm.
area. And they were all blinking on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And they would take turns blowing up real large and real small. Okay. And so I realized afterwards, I said, my goodness, this is not what we perceive it to be, because here I am saying, you better come up with some better bullshit than this because my friends don't believe you. And it immediately disappeared and something different was replaced. So that means that what I was watching was not the original object, the physical object, okay? Because it was totally replaced by something different. That's why I refer to it as a holographic projection, okay? And there's suspicion as well that the actual beings that we're seeing are actually holographic projections as well, just like your Aunt Sally the ghost.
Hmm.
It's not really a physical being that you're seeing. It's something a little bit more complex.
So when it comes to like it being holographic, but what do you think people like Travis Walton and Calvin Parker and Betty and Barney Hill actually experienced,
Well,
if not 100% physical per se?
Well, what we learned through our research study is that these experiences, if you were to put them in a boat, a category boat, it's not people in a physical craft. These are people that are having out of body experiences. Now, if you have an out of body experience, and specifically an astral travel experience, that reality seems very, very real. Okay, very, very real to you, and it's like you're almost able to touch, whatever this is, the environment. Okay, and you appear to be walking. You could fly from one area to another. These are very perceived, very, very physical experiences, but they're not the out of body experiences. In our survey, we asked people, how do you get to the craft? For the few people that said that they went to a craft, how did you get to? It was like less than 10 people actually walked to a craft. Okay, the overwhelming majority of the people went there astrally. Okay,
Hmm.
out of body wise. They went through walls, they went through ceilings. Okay, so these are like prime indicators that these were out of body experiences. But what it is that the human consciousness perceives them because we only perceive through our five senses. We think that these experiences are very physical because we still perceive everything through our physical senses.
Hmm.
But what precludes us in the out of body experience from the physicalness of it is that we cannot touch something. We cannot grab something, okay? We cannot taste, but we can see, we can hear, okay? And in some cases, smell. We can even smell. So a lot of people that have done tons of out-of-body experiences, it's been documented. Those are the senses that are used. So my arguments to Travis Walton would be, first of all, he remembered most of this through hypnotic
Hmm.
regression. Hypnotic regression. This wasn't conscious explicit memory. Okay. Most of the people that talk about abductions, okay, almost every little bit of information comes through hypnotic regression. And hypnotic
Hmm.
regressions are very problematic, especially if you're already prone to suggestions. If you read, like, all of David Jacobs' books, all of Bud Hopkins' books, and that's all you
Hmm.
know, and all of a sudden these guys come to regress you, all of a sudden you're going to have a reptilian raping you. Okay. but but in our research study, we had 644 people that had reptilian experiences. Not one mentioned that the reptilian did something bad to them, negative to them. What it was that they were
Hmm.
scared. They were scared shitless of what it looked like because it physically appeared in front of them. It was like 7 to 8 feet tall. It had 500 pounds of body like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the body of a crocodile with little beady eyes. So, and most of the time it appeared very up close to the person. So naturally, the instinct would be to be scared as hell. But then
Hmm.
for many of these people, they had continued experiences with these reptilian beings. And so later on, by the end, their last experience, the reptilian is showing them about the afterlife, about spirituality, the spirit world, you know.
Hmm.
But you have to actually do the research on these people. As I said earlier, we had 644 people. So this is not one or two or three or four, okay? And for example, these people, David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins, the most they ever worked with was 200 people in 35 years of doing the work that they were doing, of selective hypnotic regression. They only took people that had negative experiences. Not once did they take anyone with a positive experience. And I know that because I've spoken with tons of people that approached them and said, look, I had these experiences. I would like for you to work with me. And then they told them a little bit about the experiences. Oh, maybe you need to go to see Barbara Lamb. Maybe you need to go to see Leo Sprinkle. People who viewed the phenomenon totally different than they did. So right in the very beginning, they were judgmental. Why? Because David Jacobs says that he's never met not one person, not one experiencer that had a positive experience. But yet our research study of 4,350 people said that only 4% at the end of their experiences viewed it as negative. In the beginning, it was 37% said it was negative. Why? Because they were scared straight of what they saw, So 37%, almost 4 out of 10, okay? But towards the end of it, the overwhelming majority of these people continued to have experiences. And by the end, they were like Whitley Strieber, In the beginning of Whitley Strieber's experiences, the most horrid and wicked type of experiences. And now Whitley Strieber is love and light. He thanks God to these beings for giving him spirituality. Same thing with Kathleen Martin. She, as I said before, she wrote the book Captured, the Many Barney Hill story. Now her last book is titled From Alien Abduction to Spiritual Transformation. So these are 2 of the 4 people that started the whole abduction genre. And both of them also disagree, in terms of what is the abduction phenomenon. Totally different perspective, but still ufology is still stuck in that mindset of what it is. Why? Because our research study, most of the people in ufology have totally ignored what we're doing, even though we had all these PhD academics in it. Why? Because we mentioned the word consciousness, okay? And for ufology is a materialist paradigm, okay? They rather focus on UFO pictures, UFO videos, UFO crashes, anything that involves contact with a non-human intelligence or anything that involves the multiverse or consciousness, they totally dismiss it. Why? Because they never bothered to read up on it, to understand it, okay? But yet, listen to J. Allen Hynek, the father of modern ufology, for the last year before he died. He's talking about what we're talking about, okay? Jacques Vallée for over 40 years, okay? He's talking about consciousness, manipulation of space-time. Those are his exact words, that he doesn't believe in the ET hypothesis, okay? But yet, here's the man who's the father of modern ufology, Jacques Vallée. They rather listen to people like, what's his name? All these guys from Ancient Aliens with all their bullshit.
I call him Crazy Hair. I can't think of his name.
Yeah. And people like Richard Dolan, who wrote a book titled The Alien Agenda, like he knows what the hell is the alien agenda. And he never did 1 ounce of research in this field, So that's what you got circulating on the internet and these Netflix shows, these kooks who are just making a living off of this, not really interested in real academic research like the members of our organization.
I've often wondered if people like if we're missing the forest for the trees, just trying to see a craft. Like it seems like that's almost something you should ignore and go past it to what you're talking about. Like the craft is something that's not even as interesting if you think about what's on the other side of it.
I mean, here's my a couple of points to that. One is, let me ask you a question, Bobby. You've done enough interviews in this area, okay? What have we really learned after 80 years of researching UFO pictures and UFO videos and UFO supposed crashes? I haven't seen not one shred of evidence about a UFO crash, okay? So what have we really learned about UFO photos and UFO videos, okay?
Yeah, that most of them are fake.
Okay, yeah. And so my response would be almost nothing. But yet, what have we learned from our 5-year academic research study of 4,300 people that have seen UFOs and have had these contact experiences with these non-human intelligences? Well, we wrote an 820-page book off of it. We've published 2 peer-reviewed academic journals. One was in the Journal of Scientific Exploration, which is the journal that Jacques Vallée has published 4 of his articles in. These are peer-reviewed journals that an academic, a PhD academic in a university, has to read them first and critique them and then approve it. So these people in these Ancient Aliens folks, they have no idea what I just talked about, a peer-reviewed academic journal. So
now, does your topic? I don't want to lend a whole lot of credit toward, maybe the History Channel specials here, but does your topic ever go toward the the ancient astronaut theory at all? Just to quench my thirst on that one. Like,
There's no science to that. There's no research to that. Okay, it's just to me, it's like it's entertainment, pure entertainment.
like
That's
who
all
built
it
the
is.
pyramids kind of thing.
Yeah, it's who built the pyramids. I mean, you know, okay, the aliens built it. Whoopie doo. It's there's nothing else to it. But when you're talking about near death experiences, for example, you're talking
Yeah.
about just go to YouTube, type in near death experiences in YouTube, and you'll see thousands and thousands and thousands of personal testimony from individuals. Some are PhD academics, some are medical doctors, some are housewives, some are police officers, some are military folks, people from all walks of life telling their story of their near death experience. Okay. With out of body experiences, there's not thousands like in the NDEs, but the out of body experience is actually more common than the NDE. In our research study, we were able to determine that 80% of the people in our group, this is 80% of the people that saw a UFO and had some type of contact with a non-human intelligence, 80% had out of body experiences. Okay. 37% had a near death experience. Okay. 66% saw a deceased person, commonly called a ghost or a spirit. Out of those, 60% actually communicated with them. Okay. 50% of these people had a miraculous medical healing, like our dog. That's how my experiences first started. There was this energy being. Yes, this energy being totally healed our dog that we were going to be euthanizing that same day. Okay. It's a very detailed. I want to get into the details of it. If people are interested in it, they can read my book, which I'm giving it for free, titled The Mind of God. And part of it details my personal experiences, about maybe 30 pages of it. And so it's free. Just send me an email at info, INFO, at agreaterreality.com. I think I sent you a copy of that book, a PDF copy of it.
I'm
So,
skimming it right now. I was looking
Yeah.
over it.
Well, if you see this picture there on a rectangular shape energy thing, which actually is an intelligence that totally put me to sleep, made my wife disappear. And then when I woke up an hour later, my wife popped up back into reality, and the dog was running around the living room, a dog that we were going to be euthanizing later that afternoon. So that's how my experiences first started. I had no idea this was, how to associate these things. And then later on, my wife would be praying at night, because that's how this intelligence came. She was praying to the Virgin Mary of Mexico, La Virgen de Guadalupe.
Mm-hmm.
This is the night before. She was praying all night. And because our dog was like a member of our family. She was like 15 years old. She was like our first child. And so, and boom, yes, there it is right there. Yep. That's a graphic rendering
Mm-hmm.
of what it looked like. That's almost exactly what it looked like.
I don't want to give away your book to everybody. I just wanted to show that particular.
I'm giving it for free. I'm giving it away for free.
Oh, well, yeah.
I'm giving the whole damn thing for free. 200 pages of that one book, and plus 1,600 pages from the 2-volume book titled The Greater Reality. And that's the book that has 47 articles by PhD academics and medical doctors and researchers, but around 27 of them are PhD academics. So that's A Greater Reality.
So that was in your living room, and then the miracle occurred.
Yes, and then it put me to sleep. And then when I woke up an hour later, boom, my wife reappeared again. She had missing time. She had no idea where she was gone for that 1 hour. And then she looked down on the floor. The dog was running around the entire living room. And to me, it was like an atom bomb blew up in my brain, because, I had gone to Cornell for a master's degree. I went to UC Berkeley. The university has the most Nobel Prize winners in the world. I went there for a PhD, and then had been working for almost 25 years as a tax attorney with the Department of Treasury. So, I've had boatload of education, and yet when that happened to me, I had zero idea of what this was. I had zero experiences before, and to me, it was like an atom bomb blew up in my brain. And then for me, it started like almost 3.5 years of nonstop paranormal experiences, and which led me to all of these PhD academics that had similar interests. We all wanted to study academically what the hell is going on. and you turn on Netflix and all you get is bullshit, so that's not going to quench
Yeah.
my thirst, that's not going to
It's
help
the
me.
new History Channel.
Yeah, or whatever
Yeah.
this is, it's all
TLC.
yeah, it's all junk, but yet, for example, I hooked up with Dr. Eben Alexander. He was a professor of neurosurgery at the Harvard Medical School. So we're not talking about a slouch here, okay? We're talking about a guy that was a professor at the Harvard Medical School, a brain surgeon. He taught residents in neurosurgery how to operate on the brain, okay? So he had a major near-death experience, and then he wrote 3 books about it. And so I hooked up with him, and I found out that he thinks exactly like I do, okay? And so he wrote a chapter for our book, okay? Jeffrey Long, an oncologist, okay, a cancer specialist. He's been he was doing statistical research study on near-death experiences for over 25 years. He has over 13,000 people that took his surveys on his website, and so he wrote several books about what the data is showing about near-death experiences. And guess what? He thinks exactly like I think, okay? Raymond Moody, the man that coined the term near-death experiences. I went to Alabama, and I interviewed him. Guess what? He thinks exactly like I do. And then for the organization,
was that Raymond Moody?
Raymond Moody, correct. And then
I'm in Alabama.
Well, I forgot where he was, Hoover, Alabama. I forgot the city that I went there to interview him. And very sweet and kind man, but brilliant. He used to be a professor of philosophy before he became a medical doctor. And he basically coined the term near-death experiences. So he's been there and seen it all and done it. And he was you're talking to a genius. And then in terms of the UFO study, 2 out of the 4 co-founders of that organization, which is called the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, one of the co-founders was Edgar Mitchell, the 6th man to walk on the moon. He got his PhD from MIT. So we're not talking about a slouch here, okay? Edgar was a genius, okay? Then the other co-founder was Dr. Rudy Shields, who was an emeritus professor of astrophysics for 45 years at Harvard University. He had told Stephen Hawking that he had been completely wrong about his theories of black holes, okay? 3 years later, Hawking published a series of articles admitting he was wrong about black holes, but he never gave Rudy credit, okay? So that's just to let you know the type of people that are interested in these things and the people that I've been working with, okay? Rudy Shields was one of the co-editors for our book, Beyond UFOs. For the book, A Greater Reality, as I said before, it's 2 volumes. Each volume is 800 pages. The co-editors are Dr. Michael Grosso, who received a PhD in philosophy from Columbia University, Dr. Jeffrey Long, who I mentioned before, the oncologist, the NDE specialist, John Climo, who taught 45 years psychology and PhD programs, and his specialty was consciousness and the paranormal. Okay, and then we had my goodness, my brain is melting down here. Those are and then myself, I'm the 5th person. So these are the 5 co-editors for this monstrous 2-volume book. And if you would go through the table of contents, you will see it's like PhD after PhD after PhD. There's 3 professors in medical schools. One was Dr. Roland Griffiths, who's a professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. And if anybody knows anything about the medical field, they know that the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine is one of the top medical schools in the country. Okay, and he wasn't a lecturer. This guy's a tenured professor. But what has he been doing for the last 25 years? He's been studying hallucinogens, okay? DMT, psilocybin, LSD, etc. And his article in our book, he compared the use of hallucinogenics and also the journeys, the trip that you take. He was comparing that to the near-death experience. Isn't that, a trip in and of itself? He's right there comparing. You take hallucinogens, it's like you had a near-death experience. So again,
he thinks that's kind of like a mechanism to get there.
Well, what it is that all of these experiences are all consciousness-based experiences. And if you have consciousness-based experiences, you're going to have similarities of experiences, okay? Like, for example, in our research study, the UFO study, we discovered that 50% of these people were brought to another reality, okay? That happened to me, okay? I was driving my car in the middle of a highway, okay, going to work at 8:30 in the morning in the middle of a traffic jam. All of a sudden, I'm not in the car anymore. I'm in some other reality. And there I received all this information about what I'm teaching now, consciousness and the contact modalities. And it was all this information coming in, and I was shown it both visually and via downloads. And then after like 30 minutes of this stuff, boom, I'm back in my car and I'm listening to this guy doing a documentary on his liposuction, and like not 1 second was missed. Okay. I was literally taken outside of space and time. But yet, when you look at the people that took our surveys, 50% of these people have had these types of experiences. The vast majority of them don't want to talk about it because that's crazy. What I just said, that'd be enough for someone to force me to go to a psychiatrist and put me up in those white jackets and lock me up in a mental hospital. But yet tons of people are having these things. But it's about time that people begin to talk about these things, and also have.
Is the government doing anything? Is the government like trying to squelch it or anything? It sounds like something they'd be.
Well, what it is that a lot of people that are studying this phenomenon is very segmented. Like I said earlier, the folks that are studying UFOs, they're just studying in the physical flying saucers. Okay, the people that are studying near-death experiences, academia has no interest in it except for certain people that are NDE researchers. And now it's like, my goodness, it's over 50 medical doctors have published books or articles, peer-reviewed articles on near-death experiences. The out-of-body experiences, only a few academics have published articles on near-death experiences. One is because there's zero money to it. These people are trying to get tenure to become full professors. And if you write an article on out-of-body experiences, you're not going to get tenure. You're going to be dismissed,
Follow the money.
And so for a lot of these people, they do it after they retire, and so what you get is people focus on these topics in what Dr. John Alexander calls a silo effect. Like a silo, that one silo stores corn, another one stores wheat. It's like each silo is not connected to each other. They don't talk to each other. They don't interact with each other. It's all separate and distinct. But in actuality, the phenomenon is all one integrated phenomenon. And I could get into some of those particulars of why it's all integrated. In my Mind of God book, I talk about some of these similarities. I could go into some of those details if you'd like.
Oh yeah, it like you said, they're siloed most of the time. Most of the industries, for lack of a better term, seems like you're the first bunch to try to explore them all as a whole, coming from the same area.
Well, let me tell you how that started to begin with. First of all, I had that experience, okay? And then after I had that experience, shortly thereafter, I was put in touch with these other academics. And then they, in turn, put me in touch with other academics. You ever heard of the field of parapsychology? Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff, Stanley Krippner, Dean Radin. These are all people that are studying the psi phenomenon, remote viewing, mediumship, etc. They're studying that scientifically through statistical probabilities and experiments. Okay, so a lot of those folks that are friends with the folks in parapsychology, and I must have interviewed like 10 of these well-known researchers. And so I would ask all these people, first of all, do you believe that consciousness is primary and not our physical reality? Okay, that physical reality is actually a product of consciousness and not vice versa. All of them said yes. And to me, I was shocked because these are concepts that you normally would not associate with academic scientists. Okay. Secondly, physicists, however, quantum physicists, all of the pioneers of quantum mechanics, they all agreed with what I just said. Okay, that consciousness is primary. For example, Max Planck. Okay, Nobel Prize winner, one of the early pioneers in quantum mechanics. Niels Bohr, together with Max Planck, started quantum mechanics. Erwin Schrödinger, et cetera, et cetera. These are all people that won the Nobel Prize winners in physics. They all believe that consciousness is primary. So I asked these folks, and they said yes. And then the next question I asked, I said, do you believe that all of the paranormal is one phenomenon, needs to be studied as one? They all said yes. Okay. So the next question I had is, well, I want to read the book about it. Okay. Because at that point, I wasn't doing academic research on this. I was just trying to learn. And they said, well, the book doesn't exist. No one has written it. I said, well, let me read an academic article that discusses what you just agreed to. It doesn't exist either. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. You're studying all this phenomenon. And to me, it's like plain and simple, as an experiencer, that consciousness is primary and that all of the contact modalities, all the paranormal needs to be studied as one. But yet you're telling me it doesn't exist in writing? And so it was at that point, this was back in 2013, that I realized that eventually I was going to have to write a book about that. But first we needed to do the book about UFOs, because if you want to compare, for example, UFOs to the near-death experience, there's tons of literature on the near-death experience. The out-of-body experience, there's a certain amount of academic literature on out-of-body experiences, hallucinogenic journeys. In the 1950s, there were over 100 peer-reviewed research studies on LSD, okay? But not on psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, or DMT, the green in ayahuasca. And that's just recently, over the last 25 years, that we have a boom of research on hallucinogenic research. But when it came to UFOs, it was like zero, nada, nothing of academic research study of the UFO contact phenomenon. Yes, you had, these books that talk about, I saw this UFO, the Roswell crash, the Rendlesham Forest crash, and all these things, but that's not academic research, okay? So the UFO phenomena had zero. So how could you compare the UFO phenomena with, for example, the NDE phenomenon when there was zero research about it? So that's we as a group of academics began to study what is the UFO contact phenomenon really about. And that's what we published in our book for your audience members. This is the book, okay? It's titled Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. And as you could see, it's a thick book. It's 820 pages. And you could lift weights. You could do dumbbell exercises with this.
So that's big as some of the IT certification books I got.
That's huge.
They're huge.
And then this other book, which is 4 volumes. This is just volume 1 and volume. Yeah, that's the Beyond UFOs book. And again, I'll send you like half of those chapters for free. Just send me an email to info@agreaterreality.com. Now, A Greater Reality, we have 4 volumes of that. The first 2 volumes are theoretical chapters. Those are the science-based chapters and chapters written by researchers of the phenomena. But most of the people are PhD academics and medical doctors. And as you could see, I don't know if you could zoom it in there or not, but on the left-hand side, you could see all of the editors.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's 3 editors that are retired academic professors, and one is the medical doctor, Dr. Jeffrey Long, and myself. And again, that book, I'll show it here. As you can see, this is 800 pages as well. It's huge. And as of May 1st, on our website, we're going to be making all of these books accessible for free. You could upload the PDF files for free, so anyone can read these things, because it's not meant for me to earn $2 per book, all the BS rates that I get from Amazon. No, this is meant to be free for everyone to understand. First of all, because these topics are not easy to understand, okay, and no one's talking about it. So the best way that people begin to understand it is by giving it for free. And then this book here, The Mind of God, which I gave to you as well, that book is the introductory article to the Greater Reality book series. And I started writing that introduction, and it came up to 200 pages. And I said, holy cow, I really, wrote too much for the introduction. But I said, what the hell, I'll make it a separate book, and I'll also give it away for free as a PDF file. And so this here, The Mind of God, it presents my personal theoretical construct for the nature of our reality. And as I said before, this is what almost all of the professors in our organization also agree to. Okay, as I said before, that consciousness is primary, and that all of the paranormal needs to be studied as one consciousness-based phenomenon. And I also present the arguments for that. Okay, and I could go into the particulars of what are the commonalities of the contact modalities, Let me quickly go over some of them. Let me
All
just
right.
turn to the pages. One, one aspect is that all of the paranormal involves a manipulation of space-time. Okay, by definition, if you're having a near-death experiences and a near-death experience, you're outside of space-time. Okay, your
Mm-hmm.
consciousness is in some other dimension. Okay, an out-of-body experience. By definition, your consciousness is outside of your 4D physical dimension. So there's a manipulation of space-time. Astral travel experience, same thing. Remote viewing, you're using your mind to travel to another location and to see. Okay, clairvoyance, you're looking with your mind, not with your brain. Okay, with your consciousness. Okay, so again, that involves a manipulation of space-time. When you're seeing your Aunt Sally 2 days after you bury her in your living room, okay, that involves a manipulation of space-time because you know Aunt Sally's buried in the cemetery. Okay, so that's one commonality that they all share: manipulation of space-time. Secondly, the topic that human consciousness and the consciousness of non-human intelligence are able to travel through the different astral realms. Let me explain that. Um, if you're having an out-of-body experience, you float out of your body, you see your body underneath. Okay,
Yep.
you're in out of body, you're interacting with your physical reality. You're interacting with your room, your house, your neighborhood. You might go to the other side of planet Earth. You might go to the moon, but it's still interacting with your physical reality. Okay. So
Yep.
I call that the 5D reality. That's where the out of body experience takes place. So that also involves the manipulation of space time. Now, when you have an astral travel experience, you have pierced that 5D realm and you're in these higher astral realms. And then those higher astral realms, it's a realm where you can, how should I say, you can manifest
Mm-hmm.
experiences. You can manifest intelligences. It's almost like a near-death experience, very, very similar to a near-death experience, because your consciousness is way past your physical reality where you have the OBEs. And that's where people are interacting with almost an infinite number of higher forms of intelligences. Some of them, the overwhelming number of them, are positive. Now, there's some that are perceived to be negative, intelligence that is screwing
Yeah.
with you, and then and you're having different scenes, different scenarios, just like a near-death experience. Okay, now with the
Mm-hmm.
near-death experiences, you're even higher than the astral travel experience. You're actually interacting now with the mind of God. Okay, again, I'm not talking anything related to religion here. Okay, I'm talking to that realm where we as physical beings are born. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
when we're born, is that our consciousness travels down all these astral realms to our 4D reality. And we get born in this physical shell. Okay. When we die, our physical shell remains here on planet Earth. And we go up the astral realm, our consciousness, our human consciousness. And then I also document what takes place in that temporary state um, between death and rebirth again. And I also talk about reincarnation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, reincarnation is a topic that almost all ancient civilizations adhere to. Okay. Including early Christianity, the Greek tradition, Roman tradition, Buddhism, Taoism, the whole ancient India, the Vedic, the Upanishads, they all were adherents to reincarnation. And this involves the migration of the human soul, but also the migration up the astral realms and down the astral realms of non-human intelligence, of consciousness intelligence that are non-human. And so the number three is that all of these experiences that I mentioned, the contact modalities, all of them involve contact with a perceived non-human intelligence. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having an out-of-body experience, most of the major out-of-body experiencers are having contact with non-human intelligence. The remote viewers, they've written books on remote viewing where they've had contact with non-human intelligence. Astral travel, obviously, almost everybody that's had astral travel experiences has talked about contact with non-human intelligence. If you're having a near-death experience, you're seeing dead people, deceased relatives. Okay, you're seeing an
Mm-hmm.
energy being that people are associating as God. Okay, so these, by definition, are non-human intelligence. Non-human in the sense that it's not a physical 4D live human being. you're interacting with. And so all of these contact modalities, perceiving ghosts and spirits, whatever, they all involve contact with a non-human intelligence. Secondly, all of these contact modalities have in common telepathic communication. When you're interacting with this non-human intelligence, it's not lips to lips, okay? It's mind to mind, and it's always in your native language. So if you're from France, the communication is in French. If you're from a country in Latin America, the communication is going to be in Spanish, okay, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the two commonalities there. And that's number 5. Number 4. Number 5 is that these experiences involve holographic projections, all of them. And in my book, I discussed the details for that. I gave you one clear example of the UFO that I saw. Another one was Dr. Joseph Birx, who's a medical doctor who's been calling down UFOs since 1992. He's a retired medical doctor. So his first year, his third major experience was he saw this little red airplane. Red. It was wooden, like a World War I red plane. And it had little bitty wings, little tiny wings. Didn't have a propeller. Didn't have a cockpit. No one was in there. Okay. And it was going super slow like a helicopter. So as soon as he looked at it, he says, this is impossible. This thing cannot fly, physically from what I'm looking at it. And then he eventually concluded that this was a projection, a holographic projection, because this was not physically real. It couldn't fly, And so those are just two examples of that. And then another thing is that all of the experiences with the contact modalities, once you have the first experience, they trigger additional paranormal experiences, okay? If you've had a near-death experience, all of a sudden, you're going to be seeing dead people all over the place, okay? You have a close UFO contact experience with a UFO-related intelligence. You're going to be having tons of paranormal experiences. That's just by definition.
It's interesting you say that, because it's kind of something I stumbled upon just in my interviews.
Oh no, you talk to major experiences. We're talking about major experiences, not someone has had one little gray in there, that they saw. You've seen Bigfoot, okay? Right, real close. All of a sudden, you're gonna have all these paranormal experiences, okay?
But the guy on the screen, Long Island Bigfoot, he was hit by an IED in Iraq. Near-death experience. Now sees Bigfoot everywhere. He's and I know another guy just like that.
Well, it's like I said before, you have a near-death experience, it triggers paranormal experiences. All of a sudden, you're seeing dead people, you're seeing Bigfoot, you're seeing a whole bunch of UFOs. All this is from an NDE. You see what I'm getting at? But the same thing, if you have, after my experience, I saw an energy being, and then I called down this gigantic, I don't call them UFOs, I call them CAPs, consciousness aerial phenomenon. Why? Because UFOs doesn't give it the needed attention that it needs, because these experiences are consciousness-based experiences. So I said, screw it. I'm going to give it a new name. CAPs, consciousness aerial phenomenon, because that's what this is all about. It's about consciousness, okay? And so same thing. You see a UFO up close, and you see a being associated with the UFO like I did. And then all of a sudden, I had 3 years of nonstop paranormal experiences. So same thing, like Preston Dennett, his first experiences started by seeing his dead mother in his house. Okay. He saw his dead mother like a few days after she died in his house. And after that, over the years, Preston Dennett has had everything except a near-death experience. Okay. He's seen other dead people. He's seen the whole boatload of UFOs. He's had out-of-body experiences. He's had astral travel experiences, precognitive events. So that's another phenomenon that the materialists that go to your show, that are just these nuts and bolts types, they're totally clueless of what I'm just saying. But you even picked up on it because you said you're talking to people and you're getting that information as well.
Yeah, it's at least a half a dozen, like across the board. Near-death experiences, bad diseases, horrible childhoods, just anything that just like wrecks the brain.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Dr. Kenneth Ring was one of the first to understand that childhood trauma induces the paranormal. Okay.
You ever heard of Corey Pressler? He had that.
No, I don't know. No, never heard of him.
Maybe not.
But it was Dr. Kenneth Ring, who was a professor of psychology at the University of Connecticut. He was one of the near-death experience pioneers. He began researching this in 1976. So in 1992, he published a book titled The Omega Project. And that was one of the very few statistical research studies on UFO contact experiences. But what he did is he compared 85 people that had UFO contact experiences with 85 people that had NDEs. And what he found out was that these people changed in exactly the same way. They turned into the same person. Okay. And one of the findings that he saw was that early childhood trauma induces the paranormal. And he did that through statistics, through surveys. But now it's well known in the research community on the paranormal, that childhood trauma can induce, just like the other contact modalities, paranormal experiences. Now,
you think that's because when someone's a child, they're kind of still in tune with the paranormal, like how children still see their past lives and things. The veil's kind of thin with them anyway, and so any disruption makes that happen.
That's one thing. When you're young, it's easy for you to cross that veil. Like, for example, reincarnation, that takes place only among the very young, children that are under 8 years old. Once you pass 8 years old, all of a sudden you forget all about your previous life. So all the studies that have been done on reincarnation have all been on very young children. Secondly, when you're young, you have this ability to tune out, okay, to like imaginary world, play worlds, okay? And so it's sort of like, the way I would argue it would be sort of like when you're meditating, or these yogis meditate, okay, you get into this altered state of consciousness. Children have that ability, okay, because they don't have all these complexities of our human lives, all these worries and stuff like that. And so they have these traumas, so they revert back inside, okay? And I think as when you revert back inside, it's very similar to like a yogi going inside and inducing an altered state of consciousness and go into other realities and go out of his body. So that's a possible response to that question that you gave me. But some other things are, besides the triggering of the paranormal, medical healings, okay? In chapter 6 of our book, Beyond UFOs, we showed that 50% of these people that have seen UFOs, that have had contact with non-human intelligence, have had a medical healing, just like our dog, okay? And also in near-death experiences, all you need to do is just listen to these NDE testimonies. And it's like 1 out of every 10 of them talks about a medical healing associated with the NDE. The most famous case is Anita Morjani. She had stage 4 cancer. She was in a coma. She came out of the coma briefly. And then she told her doctor, said, look, no more chemotherapy because God told me that I'm already healed. And the God said, no, we're not going to give you any chemotherapy, no more drugs, because you're going to die within a few hours, So in 2 weeks, the woman was walking out of the hospital cancer-free, okay? So the whole NDE, Eben Alexander, the professor from Harvard University, neurosurgery, he had a miraculous healing of his brain. His brain was like mashed potatoes, okay? Completely destroyed. And again, he was able to get all of his memories back within a month. And he's still the same genius that he was before. So the NDE phenomenon is filled with medical healings. The out-of-body phenomenon is filled with medical healings. Same thing with hallucinogenic journeys. Okay, tons of medical healing stories associated with hallucinogenic journeys. So there's a few more. One is visions of the past and visions of the future. In all of these experiences, you're given visions of the past and visions of the future. Also, your changes, your total worldwide personality profile completely changes. All of a sudden, you're not spiritual. Now you're deeply spiritual. All of a sudden, you care about money, money, money. Every year, new Mercedes. Now you drive the old Honda Accord, that you've got locked up in your garage, Being famous, that is not important anymore. So it's like these people completely change their worldview. So all of the experiences of the different contact modalities go through these world changes. Another one is a spiritual awakening. That's one of the major components in the concept of God. People become deeply spiritual. and become less religious. Um, and I have a few others, of
Hmm.
commonalities of the contact modalities, but at least you catch my drift, and your audience
Hmm.
members can catch my drift, is that all of these experiences somehow involve an awakening of that person. And it's being done one at a time. It's not like all of a sudden all the people in your town are being awakened at the same time. No, they're taking a person here, they're taking a person there, whatever. We don't know why, why this is being selectively done. But if you've been touched with one of these paranormal experiences, you're going to radically change, become a totally, completely different person for the positive. Okay, for the positive.
Now, in your you said that being in the astral planes doesn't involve a particular religion, but what have you seen in the realm of deity, like the actual deity? Because you said your wife was praying to the Our Lady Guadalupe when your dog was sick. I mean,
Yeah, I think that what all of this has in common is that the near-death experience literature clearly reveals that there is a universal intelligence. Some call
mhm,
it the mind of God, some call it cosmic consciousness, whatever it is. But it certainly is not a religious intelligence,
mhm,
because religions are like, if you don't believe in my religion, you're going to hell. So,
yeah,
like, um, if you're not part of that religion, that's it. You're gone. But once you have a near-death experience, people do see Jesus Christ. People do see Buddha. People do see Muhammad. But the overwhelming majority of people see an energy being that they associate as God. And this God, one out of every four cases, people are given a life review. That means that this intelligence that people associate as God is showing you all the good things that you've done in your life and all the bad things. Okay. You are the judge, not this intelligence, not God. Okay. You are the judge, not to send you to hell or heaven, whatever. No, it's for you to be able to understand the decisions that you made. Were they good decisions, or they were decisions that were not wise? Okay. And usually people, once they've had a whole lot of these negative shown these experiences, and you shown it not only in your body reliving it, but in the body of the other person. So if you're having a fight with a 13-year-old kid, and you're punching the hell out of him on the ground, you're reliving that from your body punching the kid, but also from the body of the kid getting punched. Okay. And then after that experience, this being, usually this energy being, would then ask you, okay, Bobby, what did you think about that experience? And you're like totally humiliated. You're like, my goodness, it's like, I'm so ashamed by it. And then he'll show you an experience that you're coming out of Subway. You just got a fantastic, tuna sandwich with loaded up with all the vegetables. And there's a homeless guy on the ground. And like, you see him thin and, very bad condition. And you ask the guy, you said, look, when's the last time you had a meal? And the guy will say, well, like 2 days ago. You say, okay, here's my Subway sandwich. Okay. And the guy's like, his eyes pop out and he's like, oh my God, I haven't eaten in 2 days. Thank you so very much. God will show you that. And you didn't even remember it. To you, it was
mhm.
like nothing. But to God, to this being that people associated as God, it was like one of the most important experiences in your life, because it shows the love. And another thing about the life reviews, towards the end, uh, people are asked to come back. Nobody wants to return back to Earth. Nobody. Okay, I've never met one person. Okay,
I've
and
wondered
then
that honestly. Who would
yeah,
want to come back once you're there?
no, 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 no. And then people are told, they said, look, it's not important how much money you have, how famous you are, what religion you are. The most important concept you need to learn is to learn how to love each other. That's why we're here for, to learn how to love each other. But yet, that's the most difficult concept for humanity to master. Okay, to love each other. That's almost a mission impossible, But yet, that's what people
Feels
are
like it.
told. It's called Raymond Moody told me this. Dr. Kenneth Ring told me this. Dr. Jeffrey Long told me this. All of the major NDE researchers that I spoke with, they all tell me the same thing. That is like the universal message. And so again, getting back to your initial question, that this has nothing to do with organized religion, but this has to do with like the one mind that's behind all of our reality, which is so difficult for us to be able to understand, because some of us that grew up in religion, we see everything through a religious lens. Some of us that grew up as atheists, you see it through that lens. And for everyone else, it's like, how can you wrap your hands around this crazy concept of a universal mind that's not a religious God, But that's what the literature of the NDE literature is telling us. And also people that do astral traveling experiences, they're interacting with these beings, these higher forms of intelligence that are like angels, okay? They're given tons of spiritual lessons. In terms of me, where I was taken, I was given spiritual teachings associated with the nature of our reality. So for major experiencers, they go hand in hand, teachings of spirituality with the nature of our reality. And that's something that, you could ask, some of your future guests.
I definitely have a lot of talking points now. Stuff I can ask, little factors. Well, it's been an hour, and this has been amazing. I wasn't ready for this tonight on a Friday after the fish fry at church. But but yeah, I appreciate you being on, Ray, and taking the time to be on a Friday night. I was going to record this, but I did it live because I read your literature. So I just can't hold this. I can't bottle this up. And I'm glad
it was good. These concepts are not easy concepts to digest, because they involve, consciousness. And once you talk about our reality is consciousness, is not our physical reality. This is an illusion. Then, people say, well, that's esoteric literature. But if you look at the quotes from the early quantum physicists, they're saying the same thing, the exact same thing. Okay. I could give you quotes from some of the early quantum physicists. It's in my book, The Mind of God, and also in A Greater Reality. And I have like maybe 15 pages of quotes from Nobel Prize winners, winners of science and medicine, Nobel Prize awards, and on and on and on, all these quotes, and they're saying, the same thing. And so that leads you to say, my goodness, I never knew these things, I never learned about it. But then once you're reading that, here you are, geniuses like at the level of Albert Einstein, the pioneers of quantum mechanics, they'll think in the same way. So maybe there is something to it.
I think there definitely is in some aspect, because you can almost feel it if you think about it.
Yeah. And as I said before, for your audience members, send me an email, info@agreaterreality.com, and I'll send you a whole bunch of free information, and I'll put you on our mailing list. So when May comes, that my web developer has put all of our books on our website, they'll be available for free. You just upload them. And these are hardcore academic research articles and research studies on the paranormal. And so it's free. It's free. This is not meant for me to make a few bucks off of each book. This is meant to educate humanity of just how complex is our world.
And I'll put that email address in the description. Also, I did email you in it, so I'll have it in my body.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks, Ray, again. We'll go ahead and drop off here. Boom.